Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Garzay Ahmadi, founder and managing director of GO2. I wanted to start today's presentation with a personal story that is maybe more relevant to share today than it ever was before. Um, I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan, and at the age of 6 years old, I was obliged to leave the country, escape from a war that, like many other wars today, can be explained by access and control over scarce energy resources like oil and gas. So I consider myself being a victim of um, access to scarce energy resources. Later on, when I started school in France, so I immigrated to France, and when I started my school, I got exposed for the first time to renewable energy in forms of photovoltaic, and I was amazed. I was amazed because I was like, we have everything that we need to make use to produce our own electricity and to use it. So we don't have to go and start wars anywhere else because they have oil and gases. So we have every resources that we need to make this world a better place. It's just a matter of choice for everyone in order to get there. So later on, when it came to choose a professional vocation on professional path, I naturally gravitated towards renewable energy and environmental commodities. So that's why today I'm very happy to present you the corporate sourcing of renewable energy. Uh, okay, this is me. So today we will be presenting, as I mentioned, the corporate sourcing of renewable energy. And a few words about go-to-markets and what we do. We we strive to be a one-stop shop for environmental services. We offer our customers, corporate clients, to assess their carbon footprint in order to monitor it and to understand it. Then they are able to take actions in forms of identifying energy efficiency measures that they can use to reduce their energy consumption, and it's mainly unnecessary waste of energy to reduce that, and switch from conventional energy to renewables in forms of energy attribute certificates, power purchase agreement, and biogas. And last but not least, also implementing carbon offsetting strategies and carbon insetting, which is finding carbon offsetting project inside of the supply chain, so decarbonization of the supply chain. We are acting as a matchmaker between suppliers and off-takers in a way, and for all the commodities that I mentioned. Um, why choosing renewable energy for corporates? The one reason can be that it will accelerate the decarbonization of the economy. It will also allow renewable energy to be more affordable, cheaper, so more accessible to developing countries. Today, there's a rising commitment from companies to RE100 to run on renewable energy, 100%. So this is a way. And today, there's a momentum around renewable energy. There is the Paris Agreement. We discussed earlier net zero targets, and it can only be achieved if companies and countries are running on exclusively on renewable energy. And also, something that is important is that if corporate demand for renewable electricity is rising, the cost of production are going to be lower in the future, which will make this technology more affordable for other countries and avoid them to take the path of using fossil fuels. And also, using renewable energy will enable companies to contribute to 2 out of all the SDGs, the Social Sustainable Development Goals, and mainly number 7 and number 13 in this case. And up to today, there is over 270 large corporates that already committed to 100% renewable energy, and this number keeps on growing on a daily basis, which is a very positive thing to see. So let's now look a little bit deeper on the different models for a corporate to produce to consume renewable energy. The first one is energy attribute certificates. So we heard it earlier. The energy certificates or energy attribute certificates are delivered to a renewable energy producer at the moment when he injects 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy into the grid. These certificates are exchangeable freely in the market, and they're kind of birth certificates. They give information about the origin of the electricity. Here we took the example of guarantees of origin, which is the European market, where when injected in the grid, we cannot differentiate if an energy is green or gray, but only the renewable energy producer will get a guarantee of origin that is controlled by an association of issuing bodies to prevent double counting, to make sure that the information inside of the certificates is in form of the energy produced, and these certificates can be transferred and redeemed on the behalf of a corporate. And once it's redeemed, which can only happen once, the corporate can claim the carbon the carbon factor, which is 0 in this case, of the renewable energy. And if they just purchase electricity from the grid without guarantees of origin or without EACs, they will get the national mix of the carbon factor, the national mix. So these EACs have a recognition internationally. They are recognized instruments for corporates to report under GHG protocol, CDP, and RE100. These goes into the scope 2 emission reduction, and it can improve sustainability ratings. There are different type of markets for worldwide for EACs. You have the European market, which is the GOs, guarantees of origin, which is here in yellow. There's a few exceptions with UK and Poland. Then you have the North American market, the US RECs, which is Canada and US mainly. Then you have the IREX market, which is also globally different countries all over the world. Here it's in green. And then you have national schemes. The way it works is usually corporates come to us with an Excel sheet of countries in which they have energy consumption, and we help them acquire either EACs or different type of procurement of renewable energy worldwide. And this allows them then into their reporting to lower or neutralize the emission from scope 2 in their energy consumption. There's also something very interesting about EACs is the labels. If a corporate is looking for additional sustainability criteria, it can be interesting to look into labeled EACs or labeled GOs. There are different type of labels out there, and the labels mainly can provide additional quality and additional sustainability criteria to the renewable energy. It can be in forms of when was the commissioning date of the power plant? So how recent is it? How big is it? Does it impact other, like fish traps? Does it impact the nature around it? How clean is it? Is it large hydro? Is it small hydro? So there's additional criteria to make the renewable energy consumption be even cleaner than just renewable energy. The difference can be small new power plant of solar against a large hydro dam, which is the one can be a bit cleaner. And labels allow you to make the differentiation. And when a corporate wants to do marketing afterwards, this is a very handy tool. The second way of doing that is green tariffs or bundled EACs and power. The difference between what we explained earlier here is that the corporates would be purchasing from one hand the renewable energy and the certificates. It doesn't go through the grid. It's the same producer, the same utility will be providing the certificates and the power. The addition or the added value is that there is no need for additional reporting. It already comes inside the low carbon footprint comes already within the utility bill, the electricity bill. And usually these agreements can last for short-term 1 to 3 years contracts we usually provide. to corporates that wants for the next 2 to 3 years have from one solar park or wind park. In Germany, for example, we have all the questions of what happens with the wind park, all the wind energy that falls out of subsidies. And here there is a good opportunities for corporates to give it like another 5 years of life by contracting GOs and or what we call brownfield PPAs. It's subsidy like energy asset falling out of subsidies to which you can contract for a small for a short period of time the electricity and the EACs. Here we can see an average solar profile. There's also something which we'll see later, which is interesting in renewable energies, how the profiling works, because you never consume the energy at the moment when it's produced, so you will have to deal with the up and downs of the production against the consumption. Solar is pretty easy because you know more or less on a daytime you will have a production. Hydro is even easier because you can have a base load. Wind is a bit more complicated to profile. So the last or the most interesting part of procuring renewable energy for corporates is PPAs, a power purchase agreement. So a power purchase agreement is a long-term contract between a renewable energy producer and a corporate off-taker or an energy off-taker, energy supplier. And this long-term contract, which is usually between 10 to 15 up to 20 years, will allow the renewable energy producer to build a new asset. So there's really a question of additionality. Is through a PPA, greenfield PPA, corporates contribute to add and to build new renewable assets and bring new renewable assets in the markets. Because usually at the moment when a PPA is signed between a corporate clients and a project developer, the solar or the wind park is not built yet. It will be built in the next 2 years, and then the electricity which is produced will be delivered to the corporates for the next 10, 15 years, depending on what is the agreement between the two parties. And this is very interesting because it's a hedge against rising energy prices due to carbon. It's also a long-term predictability on price, and it's a very, very strong commitment to renewable energy because the corporate will enable the build of new assets. What is also interesting is the recognition for renewable electricity achievement. Usually in the market, the corporates can name this this new asset, so it's very interesting in terms of communication also. Here, what is also interesting to see is that over the past 10 years, the cost of production for renewable energy has dramatically fallen, which makes these technology viable without subsidies, without anything else. We only need corporates to commit to a purchase in a long-term agreement, and to commit to a long-term agreement, and then the energy will be produced, and the solar park or the wind park will be built. Here we can see the numbers of power purchase agreement contributing to the build of new assets. In the US, where you can see here in blue, we see an increase over the past 3 years, and it's mainly due to private investments of corporates and US federal tax credit mechanism to promote renewable energy projects. In Europe, we can see a big boom in the year 2000 of private or corporate PPAs. It's mainly due of the fall out of subsidies in Germany, for example. In Germany, you have lower subsidies for solar, so this technology is out there in the free market and can be contracted by corporate clients.
Apologies for interrupting, but we need to come to round it up. Okay. Yeah, 1 minute.
1 minute.
Thanks.
So there are different types of PPAs. I will go through it very quickly, but I think there is a presentation this afternoon about PPA that can go more into details. So there's on-site PPA where you produce and consume on the same spot. Off-site PPAs where you're in the same market, but you have a production that is not on site, and virtual PPA can be really differentiated between having a consumption in France and a production in Germany, for example, and there is a CFD between the parties, a contract for difference. If you look at the numbers, production for self-consumption has been 165 terawatt hours, and unbundled energy is the second one, and finally utility green program or bundled is 34 terawatt hours, which is the last. The difference between between all of them is you will address your scope 2 emission with most of the products, except for self-generating on-site PPAs, which is scope 1. The physical power is going to be delivered in most of the cases, but in the unbundled EAC schemes. And they're all compliance, which is important, with CDP, science-based target, or GHG protocol. And the environmental impact can be lower or high depending on which option you're going to choose. So thank you everyone for listening. And if you have questions, we have a booth. Feel free to come over.